Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Today I'm going to give a talk on the Secret Rose Garden, which is a mystical Sufi poem. I've already lit the candle of harmony, so just feel that harmony within your hearts as you listen to the words and try to use the intuition too to get some understanding. It's a very mystical poem. So in this talk, I will only be able to give a bird's eye view of this work and looking at a few of the poems, but hopefully you'll be able to get to the essence of what is being conveyed. I'll also be trying to show that the teachings are very theosophical, proving the fact that the true spiritual teaching, no matter where in the world or whatever the time period, is always the same. Study the teachings of Theosophy as put forward by H.P. Blavatsky and the Masters trains the mind to become like the swan of legend that is said to be able to separate milk from water. It gives us the ability to discriminate between teachings that are true and in line with the teachings of all the great teachers throughout the ages, as what we have in Theosophy, if you look deeply enough, is an unbroken lineage of teachers and teachings that only become clear and visible to the intuitive student who has trained the mind through correct study and meditation. So the Rose Garden of Secrets is a collection of poems written in the 14th century by Sheikh Mahmoud Shabestri, as said, who was born in the town of Shabestar near Tabriz in 1288 AD, which is 687 in the Muslim calendar, where he received his education. It is considered to be one of the great classic Persian works of the Islamic mystical tradition known in the West as Sufism. The book was written about 1311 AD and was written in response to 17 queries concerning Sufi metaphysics posed to the Sufi literati of Tabriz. In English, the book's title is variously given as Garden of Secrets, the Garden of Mystery, the Mystic Rose Garden, or the Secret Rose Garden. The last is the one I am using for this talk, based on a book which was first published in 1920, with an excellent preface by Florence Lederer and later introduction by David Fidela. In Sufi poetry, love for the divine is often concealed in poetry, and tales that seem to depict human love, the love between male and female, such as the story of Majnun and Layla, are symbolic of a higher love for the divine. Shabestari and most other Sufi poets also use the word God and He, but this must not be taken or mistaken for the limited view of God prevalent in Orthodox Christian and Muslim teachings. A God made in the image of man, capable of lower human emotions like jealousy and rage, which even a good person has transcended. Unfortunately, because of Western religious education, we cannot help having this idea of God as a person in our minds. So I do not like using the word and prefer to use the word divine, which I'll try to do in this talk, unless giving quotes. But I hope we can keep it in mind, the more transcendent view of God, if I do have to use that word. The beloved, as used by the Sufis, is the divine self. In a limited sense, it is a love for a God outside of us, but in a mystic sense, it is a love for this divinity as expressed in all living things. The Sufi poet Jami wrote, "In neighbour, friend, companion, him we see, in beggar's rags or robes of royalty, in union's cell or in distraction haunts, there's none but he. By God, there's none but he." In Sufi poetry, phrases are used to denote spiritual truths. For example, embraces and kisses are raptures of love. Sleep is contemplation. Perfume, the wish for divine favour. Idolaters mean men of the pure faith. Wine, which was forbidden by Muhammad to his followers, was used as a word symbol by the Sufis to denote spiritual knowledge, and the wine cellar means the spiritual guide. A tavern is a place where the wine of divine love inebriates the pilgrim. Intoxication means religious ecstasy. Mirth, the joy in the love of the deity. Beauty means the glory of the beloved. Curls and tresses mean plurality, veiling the face of unity from its lovers. The cheek means divine essence of names and qualities. The down is the world of pure spirits, which is nearest to divinity. The mole on the cheek is the point of indivisible unity. The torch is the light kindled in the heart by the beloved. So the Sufis realise that it is impossible to describe that which is even beyond pure spirit. Plotinus or Plotinus, the Neoplatonist, has told us that we must not be surprised that that which excites the keenest of longings is without any form, even spiritual form, since the soul itself, when inflamed with love for it, puts off all the form which it had, even that which belongs to the spiritual world. Interesting. So it's impossible to put into words an experience beyond words, so we can only use pointers and our intuition. Those who rely totally on their intellect will never understand works like The Secret Rose Garden, as it is only beyond words and concepts that the truth can be experienced. So the book is a series of poems revealing truths that can be seen to coincide with theosophical teaching, such as this: you are plurality, it's quite difficult to say that word, plurality transformed into unity, and unity passing into plurality. This mystery is understood when man leaves the part and merges in the whole. So you are plurality transformed into unity, and unity passing into plurality. This mystery is understood when man leaves the part and merges in the whole. Or, the past has flown away. The coming month and year do not exist. Ours only is the present's tiny point. Time is but a fancied dot ever moving on, which you have called a flowing river stream. I am alone in a wide desert, listening to the echo of strange noises. You are asleep, and your vision is a dream. All you are seeing is a mirage. When you awake upon the morn of the last day, you will know all this to be fancy's illusion. When you have ceased to see double, earth and heaven will become transformed. When the real sun unveils his face to you, the moon, the stars and Venus will disappear. If a ray shines on the hard rock like the wool of many colours, it drops to pieces. The world is an imaginary figure, a diffused shadow of the infinite. One breath created the worlds of command and all living things. The imagination produces phenomenal objects which have no real existence. So this world has no substantial reality, but exists as a shadowy pageant or a play. All is pervaded by absolute being in its utter perfection. There are many numbers, but only one is counted. And of course all those words can be recognised by students as being pure theosophy. I could go on quoting such beautiful poems from the book, but I hope that perhaps some of you who are interested may look for it afterwards. It is available for free online, as well as for sale on various places like Amazon. But every verse has symbolic meanings that can be used for deep meditation. I must admit, I found the first few pages describing the face of the beloved symbolically rather heavy-going, but from then on many of the verses are sublime. For example, I and you are but the lattices in the niches of a lamp, through which the one light shines. I and you are the veil between heaven and earth. Lift this veil and you will see no longer the bond of sects and creeds when I and you do not exist. What is mosque and synagogue? What is the temple of fire? I and you are the veil between heaven and earth. Lift this veil and you will see no longer the bonds of sects and creeds when I and you do not exist. What is mosque? What is synagogue? What is the temple of fire? If only the Muslim world, and the world in general, could take these words to heart, then we would not have had the insanity we have nowadays. But generally, society is refractive to such ideas and tries to stamp out anyone who attempts to profess them, as Orthodox Muslims have done to Sufis throughout the ages. Christianity too has shown a marked inability to follow the teachings in the Sermon on the Mount, preferring instead to live by the eye for an eye doctrine, refuted by Jesus in favour of the love thy enemy attitude. This is because both Orthodox Christians and Muslims are consumed by their personal natures and cannot rise above these. This is emphasised by the fact that millions have died at the hands of Christians and Muslims, oblivious of the fact that you can't actually kill anyone, just render the physical body inactive for a while, while at the same time heaping karma upon the perpetrators, who will suffer much more than the victims in the long run. Of course, this is a generalisation, as thankfully there are Christians and Muslims who do try to follow the path of peace and love. Jesus said, fear those who can kill the soul and not those who can kill the body. Most people nowadays remain blind to the beauties of the spiritual path and drag down lofty concepts to the level of the sensual. The Muslims have a sensual heaven where celestial virgins await the good Muslim, which shows an inability to escape the lusts of the personal self and realise that true spirituality is beyond concepts and forms. Christians and some other groups talk about the return of Christ, but H.P. Blavatsky tells us in the esoteric character of the Gospels that the coming of Christ means the presence of Christos in a regenerated world, and not at all the actual coming in body of Christ, Jesus. This Christ is to be sought neither in the wilderness, nor in the inner chambers, nor in the sanctuary of any temple or church built by men. For Christ, the true esoteric Saviour, is no man, but the divine principle in every human being, he who strives to resurrect the spirit crucified in him by his own terrestrial passions and buried deep in the sepulchre of his sinful flesh, he who has the strength to roll back the stone of matter from the door of his own inner sanctuary, he has the risen Christ in him. The Son of Man is no child of the bondwoman, flesh, but verily of the free woman, spirit, the child of man's own deeds, and the fruit of his own spiritual labour. Amazing words. It refers to a time of spiritual regeneration in humanity as a whole, as we will all have the Christ consciousness, or Buddha nature, or Krishna consciousness, just as much as Jesus had, but he had learned to manifest it much more than we do at the moment. A Sufi saying is, it is the inward glow that makes the Sufi, not the religious habit. It is the inward glow that makes the Sufi, not the religious habit. Sadly, in most religions, the followers are the victims of habit, repeating words parrot fashion without any kind of real understanding. We are bound only by the habit of meditation, as the Ashvakara Gita says, because if if even meditation becomes a habit, then it loses its inner meaning and we lose that inward glow. It's a very profound concept, that, this inward glow. Just have a drink. So it is this inward glow that we try to cultivate within ourselves by study and practice and by the correct form of meditation. Sufis cultivate a longing for the divine that obliterates any interest in things of the world. Though the Sufi lives in the world and performs earthly duties as best he or she can, inspired by this inner light, it gives even ordinary life a wider meaning and renders even simple tasks divine. Theosophical literature describes the longing as the inexpressible yearning of the inner man to go out towards the infinite. The inexpressible yearning of the inner man to go out towards the infinite, which is a phrase I've used in many talks over the years, as it is said to be the true attitude to meditation, a phrase used by H.P. Blavatsky, Damodar Mavalanka, A.E. George William Russell and others. Appearing first, I think, in an article, The Elixir of Life, which was included in an early edition of the Theosophist. Another well-used quote is from The Light on the Path by Mabel Collins. For within you is the light of the world, the only light that can be shed upon the path. If you are unable to perceive it within you, it is useless to look for it elsewhere. It is beyond you, because when you reach it, you have lost yourself. It is unattainable, because it forever recedes. You will enter the light, but you will never touch the flame. So in the secret rose garden, Shabestri has planted many beautiful flowers so that we can partake of their scent and the divine intoxication of love they emit. Florence Lederer, who was the translator of one edition, states, all around his garden, Mahmoud has planted these roses of reason, belief, knowledge and faith. They are blossoming everywhere, beautiful in their vivid colouring of truth and purity. But it is in the centre that we find a rose tree of glory, unequalled, glowing with the blossoms of love's devotion. This is the tree which Mahmoud planted with all his heart's adoration, the description of the perfect face of the beloved. It is at this spot we wait entranced, and through the mystic stillness we seem to hear the voice of him who long ago for love's sake planted this rose tree, echoing his sublime utterance. See but one, say but one, know but one. See but one, say but one, know but one. So H.P. Blavatsky is reported to have said in the Bowen Notes and other places emphasised that we should keep this idea of oneness at the back of our minds, or else the teachings we study will lose their meaning. Oneness at the back of our minds is something very, very important, because we're not studying to gain knowledge for ourselves, but to be able to share with others and to see the face of the divine in them, see the face of the divine in everyone, and to help them to see their true nature. If we hold any kind of animosity towards anyone for any reason, that is a challenge for us. Progress in this is denoted by the bridges we build and the walls we demolish on the way. It's building bridges and demolishing walls. Again, to quote from the Secret Rose Garden, whence the charm of a fair face, Not earthly beauty only can so allure us with its loveliness. Perchance we see in this, as in a cloudy mirror, the far faint reflect of the perfect face. And these deep feelings of delight and wonder can only issue from the one true beauty. For in divine perfection there is no other partner, nor is it all desire and lust that tempts men's hearts with longing. Evil appears, but as the other side of truth. So beauty is beauty, whatever level we see or experience it at. But the real beauty is that which inspires us to seek our true self. So Plotinus says, echoing Shabestri in the last quote, "This is the spirit that beauty must ever induce, wonderment and a delicious trouble, longing and love, and a trembling that is all delight. For the unseen, all this may be felt as for the seen, and this the souls feel for it, every soul in some degree, but those the more deeply, that are more truly apt to this higher love. Just as all take delight in the beauty of the body, but all are not stung as sharply, and those only that feel the keener wound are known as lovers. Those only that feel the keener wound are known as lovers. These lovers then, lovers of the beauty outside of sense, must be made to declare themselves. What do you feel in the presence of the grace you discern in actions, in manners, in sound morality, in all the works and fruits of virtue, in the beauty of souls? When you see that you yourself are beautiful within, what do you feel? What is this Dharnayasic exultation that thrills through your being, this straining upwards of all your soul, this longing to break away from the body and live sunken within the veritable self? The inexpressible yearning of the inner man to go towards the infinite again. This explains beautifully the attitude of the Sufis, and indeed they are known to have been inspired by Platonic and Neoplatonic philosophy. Plotinus then, in his treatise on beauty, bases his ideas on the fact that beauty is an abstract concept that manifests in many ways, while still remaining impersonal in essence. Beauty is beauty, whatever mask it wears, and true beauty proceeds from the spiritual side of our nature. It is the glimmering of the spirit within us or around us, and if we learn to read the message of beauty, it can become our guiding star through all the trials and temptations of life. For in all the manifestations of beauty, there is a hidden message, as Plotinus says, only lovers will ever find. When he says lovers, he refers not to lovers in a sentimental or sensual sense, but those who have nurtured within themselves this inexpressible yearning and have reached that point in their lives when it has become the one essential thing, a line of life meditation. How different this is from the modern view we have of humanity as almost a soulless automaton, and how the great heresy of separateness truly weans us from the rest. So we heap suffering on our fellow creatures, and we fail to see beyond the masks. We see through a glass darkly. If we can imagine in thought that we are on a high mountain and looking at the world below, we see how we hurt each other, physically, mentally and morally, because we are sunk into the illusion of separateness. As the voice of the silence by H.P. Blavatsky tells us, behold the hosts of souls, watch how they hover o'er the stormy sea of human life, and how exhausted, bleeding, broken winged, they drop one after other on the swelling waves. Tossed by the fierce winds, chased by the gale, they drift into the eddies and disappear within the first great vortex. So these are the challenges that we meet with every day and the battles we go through to blossom forth as truly human beings. Love and compassion are what life should teach us every step of the way, to understand rather than condemn, and to always try to help if help is needed. The talisman is to look upon everyone as potential spiritual beings, to see that we must always be helping the others to develop their spirituality and never, through negativity, push them further down, which feelings of repulsion and hate do. There is beauty hidden in every soul, no matter how dark it may appear on the surface. It just needs to be brought to the surface. And this can be done by adopting a positive attitude to everyone we come into contact with and trying to see the beauty of the true human condition within them. Keep working on that. In what ways do we not love? Why do we feel enmity towards something or someone? When we know such an attitude is negative and unhelpful to them and to ourselves. Take time to step back from the rush and see and feel the beauty of the world, and particularly that of our fellow human beings. We war against ourselves because we are one, and this warring within ourselves spreads out into the world, and all becomes chaos and suffering. It is needed that we have a much deeper understanding of what it means to be human. Shabestri wrote, "Then that moon, whose face shone like the sun, seeing I'd cast hope away, filled a goblet of divine knowledge, and passing to me, bade me drink, saying, with this wine, tasteless and odourless, wash away the writing on thy being's tablet. Then that moon, whose face shone like the sun, seeing I'd cast hope away, filled a goblet of divine knowledge, and passing to me, bade me drink, saying, with this wine, tasteless and odourless, wash away the writing on thy being's tablet." So with the wine of spiritual wisdom, find that inner strength to rise above the personal self and those things that bring harm to that self, and find the true self beyond all the world's cacophony. And as the Mahachon says, all of us have to get rid of our own ego, the illusory apparent self, to recognise our true self in a transcendental divine life. All of us have to get rid of our own ego, the illusory apparent self, to recognise our true self in a transcendental divine life. The futility of war was expressed in a haiku by the Japanese poet Matsuo Basho. The haiku has only 3 lines of 575 syllables, but is a rich treasure to the intuition. So Basho wrote, "Summer grasses, all that remains of warriors' dreams. Summer grasses, all that remains of a warrior's dreams." What this means to me is that the things that wars are started for, possession of land, sectarian differences, revenge for wrongs, etc., are all just transitory, and in 1,000 years nothing will remain of the participants, and nature will have reclaimed the places where once palaces stood and where battles were fought. Summer grasses, all that remains of warriors' dreams. What they were fought for will no longer matter. It is an awareness of the transient nature of life, in Japanese, mono no aware, which conveys the poignancy that one feels at the transient nature of things. But people are swamped by the feelings that they will live forever in their present personality, unaware that they are only immortal in the true divine inner self, which plays its various parts on the stage of life, and that all is just a passing illusion in the long run. Any kind of violence, physical, mental or moral, negates the effectiveness of any religion and renders it not just useless, but pernicious to the human soul. It poisons the soul and throws it into confusion. bringing dark clouds before the sun, and then the storms of passion and ignorance that darken our lives. There's a book called The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett, who developed an interest in Theosophy and spiritual matters, which she incorporated in her novels. I wonder if she had read one of the earlier editions of The Secret Rose Garden herself. In her story, a 10-year-old girl, Mary Lennox, finds the key to a garden that has been neglected, and along with a boy called Dickon, who has a way with animals, and another child called Colin, who has been confined to the house believing he was crippled, they start to regenerate the garden. And as it springs back to life, some magical things happen. Colin's health improves, and there's a correspondence between the garden's flowering and the blossoming of the characters in the story. There's a lot of meaning in it, in that story. One of my favourite films, actually. I've not actually read the book, but I've seen a couple of the films, and they're really good. Shabestri writes, "This bouquet of scented blossoms I've plucked from that garden, and I've called it the Secret Rose Garden. In it are blooming roses of the mysteries of the heart, untold before. In it the tongues of the lilies are all singing, and the eyes of the narcissus behold all, far and near. Gaze on each one of these with your heart's eyes, till your doubts melt away. You will see tradition, earthly and mystical truths, all arranged clearly in knowledge and detail. Do not seek with cold eyes to find blemishes, or the roses will turn to thorns as you gaze. Ingratitude is a sign of ignorance, for those who know the truth are thankful. When you remember me, breathe, mercy be upon him. I am ending with my own name. O Allah, greet me a lauded end." Or, O Divine, grant me a lauded end. Only by the alchemy of the heart can we experience the love at the heart of the universe. If a person is more head-centered, they need to develop the heart to be able to continue on the pathway. It is true that the world needs more love and tenderness at this particular time. The mighty ocean of thought needs to be sweetened by the beauty of love in its truest sense, and this love needs to be disentangled from lust and sentimentality, which are predominant in modern society. Works like The Secret Rose Garden have a resonance in our souls and open doorways to wider vistas of understanding. Without love and compassion, humanity becomes less than human, giving itself to the control of soulless machines and becoming in time a soulless machine itself. Like Shabestri, we seek our lost love, seemingly always out of the reach of our reasoning mind. We have to focus on something that transcends the reason to find this love and to allow it to become our guiding star through all the complexities and dangers of your earthly life. In the depths of our being, it tells us there is no death or change for the real self, only the promise of an eternal life and a pilgrimage to the very heart of love itself. We need to gather in ourselves the ingredients that will initiate the alchemical process that will bring about the transformation or remove all the barriers we have placed between ourselves and that true love. I will end with the words of Shabestri. In the empty heart, void of self, can be heard the echoing cry, I am the truth. This is man, one with the eternal, travelling, travel and traveller have become one. Thank you. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Peace on earth and goodwill to all beings. See you next time.